Good afternoon and good evening, friends. So we have an interesting webinar coming in. I'm Shresht from foundit. I'm a AVP of product here, looking at recruiter products. With me today, I have Shailendra, who's going to be our panelist. I will start with sharing slide. So we are conducting this RecRoute webinars, every 2 weeks on multiple different topics around the whole recruitment ecosystem. Here are some of the past ones. You could definitely go ahead and see some of our old content as well. Monster APAC and Middle East is now foundit. We have over 50,000 recruiters who trust foundit for their hiring requirements. We have over 45 million page views every month, over 10 million people visiting our site every month. The next thing that I want to talk about is we are going to launch a new product called Foundit Edge. That's going to be revolutionary in the recruitment industry. We would have supercharged profiles. We will have more context about every profile. You will have more than 25 smart filters to go through. And you would make your pipeline more feel special by automating and personalizing the task. It's going to be an AI-driven product. So I will be conducting a small poll now in case if you're interested for the Foundit Edge beta program. You could let us know. You could see on the screen. You can select yes and no, and then we will go to the topic of our webinar today. We're going to talk about unlocking the secrets of hiring a top product manager. This is one of the requests that we've been receiving from a lot of the HR fraternity saying, how do we identify the right set of product managers? How do we, go ahead and hire them? And how do we really convince them to join the org? So with me today, I have Shailendra, who's on the panel with me today. He's the co-founder and director of product and strategy at Change Engine. Just to give you a brief bio about Shailendra, he has over 16 years of experience as a product person and is currently a co-founder of a startup accelerator and incubation firm called Change Engine. A writer at heart, an engineer by brain, Shailendra describes himself as a balance of right and left brain. Having worked in multiple small and large organizations such as Make My Trip, Nearby, Magic Bricks, Max Life Insurance, Spinny, and product management, Shailendra also teaches product management at multiple online and offline institutes. He's an angel investor in multiple startups. The love for poetry takes him to perform at multiple stages, such as the Social House. He also has written a best-selling book, Packet of Lace. Welcome, Shailendra. Would love to, just know a little more about, what you're doing with Change Engines. You can tell the audience a little more about it.
Thank you, Shresht. Thank you, the Foundit team, for having me here. And I was just thinking that I have talked about how to crack product management interviews a lot of times, but never been on a panel which is actually talking to the recruiters on how to hire the right kind of product managers. So very excited to be talking about that side of the table. And actually, I was talking to somebody and I told him, in fact, you only, that, I have been on both sides of the table, right? I've been on the recruitment side, having interviewed at least, I was just counting maybe 500 more interviews, done 500 more interviews in product and UX combined. And of course, on the other side also, because as you can see from my profile, worked in almost 5-6 organizations, you can assume that I would have at least taken 40-50 interviews, right, on the other side as an interviewee. So with that kind of experience, I thought I will be able to share some value in terms of what do you do when you're thinking about hiring the right kind of product people in the industry. But just to give you a little bit background about myself and the organization I am now running. As you've explained that, I'm a mix of left brain and the right brain. So when I was growing up, I was also, as you also explained, I was interested in maths, physics, because those were my subjects. My father was a teacher. So, and physics or maths. So he used to teach this and, it was kind of, you can say in my DNA, in my blood. But I was also interested in poetry and writing and all of this. And in hindsight, when I think that is what the product management job, which I took almost accidentally, because when Make My Trip to hire people from ISB, and it was one of the only organizations I can actually say 4 organizations: Make My Trip, InfoEdge, Yahoo, and Google. These were the 4 organizations which used to hire for product management. I'm talking about 2010. And recently I was checking at ISB, and literally there are like more than 100 companies which are coming to hire for product managers. And that just tells you how things have changed over the last 12 to 14 years. And having been in that side, having undertaken product management, my favorite term is learning from first principles, right? So because when I was asked to do product management for mobile on Make My Trip, the phone which I used to have was a Nokia 3310, which did not even have which did not even have internet in it, right? And when my boss asked me to create to create apps for Make My Trip and all, I was like, I don't know how to do it. So from there to now, having worked on multiple products, mostly in the 0 to 1 space, I thought that maybe now working in one industry, one company, I think I've had enough. Now is the time to sort of help other startup founders who are mostly in that space. We're trying to figure out the product market fit, where they're figuring out what is the right model, which market to sell, with, whether it is India, whether it is US, whether it is a B2C product, whether it is a B2B product, how do you do MVP, how do you do pilots, and so on. I thought maybe this is the platform which I can use to help a lot of budding founders in their journey. And hence we created, along with Varun Agarwal, who is my co-founder, Change Engine, which is the idea is we help early stage founders to kickstart their entrepreneurship journey, and we help them in all ways possible. So that's the background.
That sounds really, really interesting, Shailendra. So we had certain questions from our other respondents, or So I'll start with the first one, which is in today's highly competitive job market, what are some of the top challenges that companies face when they're hiring top product managers, and and how they can overcome these challenges?
Okay. See, as I said that, product management, when I started in 2010-11, it was very nascent. And I would say it is still kind of very nascent, and still people are not fully aware of the role. And I think the root cause of the problem in this entire recruitment space is because of this, the lack of awareness of this role. And I will break it into 2 sides, one from the recruiter side and the other from the applicant side. Because people are not talking from an applicant side, because people are not aware of what this role essentially is, a lot of different people assume product management to be either a project management role or a technical PM role or a PO role, which is mostly restricted to the Scrum, right, which is that of writing user stories and so on. They don't understand that this is actually a slightly bigger role, which involves different kind of skill sets. And that is the biggest reason that, when people start applying and when you start interviewing these people, you realize that they lack certain skills, which, you will not be able to hire them because they don't have those kind of skill sets. Some people who think that they are very good with technology, they understand tech, can become very good product managers, which is not the case. And the other people on the other extreme who think that they are good with communication and they understand a bit of design and project management without understanding technology, they can be product managers. That is also not the case. So you have to have that balance. And that is why I always think that, this role is a very difficult role. And because in one person, you're trying to find out multiple things. So I think the root cause is that the pool is very limited. Really good product people who understand technology, who understand design, and at the same time, because technology design are mostly, at least technology analytical skills are slightly left-brained activities, right? At the same time, we also expect people to be good with communication, good with stakeholders, good in articulation, and so on, which are slightly more, and empathetic, which is slightly right-brained activities. Yeah. And we most of us mostly have one side as very heavy. Most of the engineers are mostly left-brained. And if you talk about the arts and the humanities background, they'll be mostly right-brained. So to be able to find that balance is the challenge. And that is why the pool is slightly limited. from the applicant side. But I think that will solve on its own as time progresses, and as people are more and more people are getting aware about it. A lot of these universities and colleges are now talking about product management, teaching what product management is. Then a lot of these professional courses, I teach on a few of them, where now people are now trying to understand what exactly is this, what is this animal all about, right? Otherwise, we just have heard about things that, this is a mini CEO of a product, or, things like those. So that will solve on its own. But on the second side, which I think is more solvable, is on the recruiter side. As recruiters also, I think, and because I've worked in multiple organizations and hired a lot of people, that our understanding of the role is also not very clear. And especially when it comes down from the head of product to the person who's going to hire to the HR, there is a lot of communication gap which also happens in this flow, right? And a lot of times when I see the JD of, say, a product manager, sometimes they're just copy pasted from one place to the other. And nobody has actually given a thought about what exactly is this role going to do, what exactly. So we also, as recruiters and as employers, I don't think we're doing a very good job of explaining to what this role is. Because if we have to also help the potential employees think that, to gauge what exactly this role is going to be. These are the competencies which we are going to look at, and so on. So I think that bit we should do on our own, which I think a lot of product leaders are also sort of not doing. And also from an HR perspective, I think they have to take a very big leap to also start understanding, a growth product manager is a different from a technology product manager, and then different from a category product manager, and so on. There's finer nuances around this, and not just a one black box.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. And just following on that particular question, I think so. You've already talked about the key qualities or skill that you should look at being an outstanding product manager. But what are the ways that a recruiting manager could identify or assess these traits during the hiring process? Because I come from a product background, right? So whenever I go to my HRs or in the other orgs as well, these have been certain questions, where they've asked that, how do I assess this particular trait? Because, just like you said, growth product manager versus technology product manager. So do you think, is there a way that these things can be assessed? How do you identify and assess these things?
Yeah, I think I mentioned a lot of competencies, and I don't know if I mentioned the word empathy. Because if you ask me, the top two competencies or attributes which I look for in a candidate, one will be empathy, and the second is his ability to communicate. Rest others, which is technology, design, and others, are sort of, I would say, secondary. Because if you are very good technically, very good with the design, but if you're not empathetic, then that sort of fails. Because if there is one thing which I'm looking at a product manager, it is his ability to be in the shoes of the user and be able to think the pain points of that user. And for that, I think maybe the HR people might not be able to solve this, but as a first round or the first few rounds, how I solve this is whenever you ask a question around what is your favorite product and how do you make it better and stuff, 80% of the times the answer starts from I, that I as a user, I have used this, and these are the things I want to change in that, without actually figuring out the basics, which is, what is this organization or what is this product all about? What was the vision of the product at which this was set up? Who are the users who use this product? What is the typical persona of the users who use this product? And let me talk about this particular persona and how will they use this, and these are the pain points which they have, which is a very standard way to think, because that means that you are not thinking about you yourself as an individual. You're actually thinking about the user who is going to use the product and be able to apply yourself to that user. And that those are the hints that this guy is thinking about the user, is being empathetic in that thing. And communication, I think communication can be gauged slightly more easily. It is not just about your ability to speak fluently, but your ability to make your point come across in as many words or minimum words. And yeah, I think these two things are there. Apart from that, when it comes to technical or design related things, mostly I rely on case studies because these cannot be gauged in a 30-minute, 40-minute interaction. So mostly what we do is I prefer giving a case study where they have to do some bit of research on their own. They have to show some bit of designing, wireframing. And then the other thing is that I also then ask them to come and present in person. So barring those COVID days, which was not possible, but otherwise I mostly ask them to come and present to a group of people, say 5, 7 people, so
Right.
that we also see that, how is their confidence level, what is their conviction in terms of what they're presenting, how they're able to counter any views which, the panel might have. And I basically what we do is we seed some of these questions that, one person has to be a really tough one. They will ask few difficult questions, because that is what happens with every product manager, right?
Yeah.
And see how does he reciprocate. Does he go down and say and accept whatever he's saying because this is an interview, or does he just become too aggressive to answer that, or how does he manage that kind of situation? So some of the skills, softer skills, are also gauged in those interactions. So that these are the ways in which I have sort of evaluated the empathy, the communication, and technology/design roles, skill sets.
Got it. Got it. One of the other things, people talk about is, product managers are often the driving force behind innovation and growth in companies. And specifically, these days, all the companies moving into the tech world. Can you share some insights? How would you evaluate a candidate's ability to think strategically and drive impactful results? And one of the points I know you did mention around case studies, but what could be others which can be, done in earlier rounds?
Yeah. See, one of the things which we do is, not just ask them questions about standard products and things, give them a very, very hypothetical situation, or ask them to create a product which does not exist, for example, and see how do they visualize this product. So, for example, I ask them, how if you were to create a park, like a physical park, and it is not a digital product, it's a very physical product. And your vision is to be able to create a world's best park and scale it across geographies, right? That is the vision. So how do you think about it from a strategy perspective? That, who are the users who are going to use it? Is it going to be for kids? Is it going to be for adults? Is it going to be for elderly people? Is it going to be what? Like, how do you define that? So this will test some bit of strategic thinking, that he may be able to map out what are the different parks available, what do people do, like from a competition benchmarking perspective, or from a need perspective, that what exactly, what are the different options which are available, who are the different kind of users who are going to use this park, and so on. And ask them to also sort of create the vision, mission statement for this kind of park. So that the moment you throw somebody off the regular thing, right?
Yeah.
Because they would have prepared about Zomato and Paytm and Google Maps and Uber, right? But you give them such a thing which completely throws them. And it then boils down to very first principle thinking, as I was saying in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
It means, do you even have the vision to think of that kind of a park in the world, right? And that will, if you're very tactical, if you're very feature-led PM, you will never be able to think. Or, for example, I asked them to create, we keep hearing this in India, right? About model cities. That, the government also say that, we are trying to set up model cities. I asked them, if you were hired by the government of India to set up a few model cities, what is your vision of a model city? What do you mean by a model city? So unless you have a very, and it is not about education, like even a associate product manager level guy can answer these questions, because it is not something which will come from experience. It is just about, do you have a vision to think like that? So those are things I do.
That's a very interesting one. I remember, one of the product leader was talking to, he started, saying, for all the digital product managers, he would always go back to say, let's think about their innovation by asking them about a non-digital product.
Exactly.
So, how about you? How would you start, thinking about if you have to run a soap company, how would you think about soap? What colors? How would you be the packaging? What would be the size of it? And, so I think so, I can relate to it. That's a very interesting one. The other one of the other questions, from the participants earlier was, what are some of the common red flags or warning signs that, the hiring manager should be aware, during the course of the interview, or, while they're evaluating the candidate?
See, one of the things which I really, really want to see in a candidate is how good a listener he is, right? As product manager, and we keep talking about communication, right? Communication is not a one-way channel, one-way street that, it is only your ability to speak. There are a lot of people you will find who are very good with when it comes to speaking, but very poor listeners. And when I tell people and when I take these classes, I often crack this joke, which I will share, that there's a difference between hearing and listening, right? So when you have a girlfriend, most of the times what you are doing is listening to what she's saying, right? And when that girl becomes your wife, then you are only hearing what she's saying, right? Not actually listening. The thing is that because extending that example, when she's your girlfriend, you are actually not just listening or hearing to what she's saying, but also the non-verbal clues, her eye movement, her hand gesture, and a lot of the things. And you're not just waiting for your turn to speak, but you're enjoying hearing what she's saying. But when she becomes your wife, it turns around, right? You're just waiting for your turn to speak and let her. So the point is, as a product manager, and you have multiple stakeholders to manage, sales, most especially customers. If you do not have this talent to be a good listener, right, you will never be able to understand what the pain point of this person is. And it can be a salesperson, it can be a customer, it can be an HR person creeping about anything. It can be anybody, right? Most of the time, people come to product managers with a problem. And if you cannot lend that ears, and how do I gauge that? For example, when I'm asking a question and the person either does not ask a counter question or will just assume whatever is told to him and just go on in a different tangent. That means he was not paying attention to when I was talking, when I was telling him what the question is. Or he should have, and many times I make a point that I don't give all information. I hide some information just to see whether he is going to ask me for that or not. If he's not, then he will just go on his tangent, thinking that this is what he will assume a lot of things. This is what is going to be. So, but there are good people who will always ask counter questions, who will ask, does it mean this? They will clarify. So those are the signals. And the second one, I think, is some people which at least I don't like a lot, and I think those are red signals for me, is people who become very, very theoretical. So lot of product managers nowadays and a lot of these YouTube channels, etc., have taught them that this is the way to crack an interview. There is a framework to apply and stuff. So the moment you throw a question, they will come back with a framework. I'm not saying I'm against framework, but use it only to base it and then build your own things, right? Some people just so fixated with framework that they will not be able to think anything beyond that, and they will not be able to apply any practical things around it. And the moment you again throw them away from the framework, they will not be able to come up with a good answer. So if somebody who's talking very theoretically, saying then how will you, if I'm told them that these are the things, how will you prioritize? And then they will start talking that, I will use the Moscow framework, or I will use the AARR framework, or I will use this framework, and so on. I'm like, okay. And so, but you missed the question altogether. I was not testing you on frameworks. But yeah, it's good that you use a framework, but don't be too overly dependent on a particular framework, and don't try to force fit a framework where it does not exist. So some of these things, and I think third will be, especially if it is a in-person interview, where I also make them meet a few people, and if other people, if you get that vibe, those energy from people. So, and if you belong to a certain kind of organization, suppose which is very fast moving, and the other person keeps talking about processes and and things, then that's a red flag. Versus if I'm hiring for a big company and he keeps talking about agility and the ability to move fast and throwing rules to the dustbin. So basically, I'm saying the third rule is not a generalized rule. It actually fits from company to company, differs from company to company. Basically, you have to check your cultural values, that whether this person sort of adapts to this culture or not. And you ask certain questions to see whether he is able to. Just throw an example. If I ask you to work on this, how will you approach? And if he's completely off the organization's values and the way things are done there, then it's a red flag for me. It may not be a problem with the candidate per se, but from a cultural perspective and hiring perspective, that's a red flag. So those are the three things.
That's interesting. So one of the people have already asked a question around Narasimhan has asked the question from the panel saying given that they've been giving case studies but given that right now the ChatGPT thing is here, how about what are the ways that you can identify during the presentation or any other options to avoid these? And that's, I think, so becoming relevant for all the industries or any area that you get into. ChatGPT is really there.
It's getting difficult. We are also facing a lot of times we give candidates the assignments and some of these start coming in. Although there are now counter ChatGPT applications also coming in, which will tell you with a certain probability that this is built on using a AI tool, but it is not 100% foolproof. So, but the other thing is that if you have, like, for example, I'll give you the, when you apply for ISB, you write your essays, but when you're there as in person, they also ask you to write one page then and there, as a paragraph. And what they do essentially is just try to match the language. And if the person who has written this and the person who's written the essay, does that match or not? So many times when you come to meeting these people face to face, you can just gauge from the language or the way they have written, as in to create a slide then and there as an assignment, which will be in the office. And if it matches, then you have no reason to believe that they would. And many people will use some pieces of ChatGPT because it's now a technology available. Like, for example, earlier people would use Google, right? You cannot stop people from Googling. But yeah, it should only be limited to certain things. Not the entire presentation shouldn't be created on ChatGPT. But you can gauge some of these when you are talking to them in person and ask them to maybe create one slide as an extension to that only. Just ask them to create one slide. Have that as a backup, which we will give everybody, but not in advance. We will ask them to create on the fly and just try to see if it matches.
That's an interesting one. I think so. That's something companies would start doing it, given that what's happening with ChatGPT everywhere. The adoption is very, very high.
Yeah.
People will find paths to break certain ways to crack this.
Right.
Moving on to the next question that I had in mind, what are some of the unique strategies that industry-leading companies use to stand out and appeal to potential product managers? What are some of the things that you think other companies should start doing, to cultivate becoming a product ops?
Yeah. See, many companies where I have worked, which were not known as a product organization, and when I was hired, also I had a tough time to hire product managers because these organizations were not even known to be a product organization. And it is a journey. It will not happen in a few months or a few quarters. It will take multiple years to change. But yeah, the few things which we have done is start putting all of your product related work on a blog. So we started maintaining a blog and started popularizing that, publishing whatever we are doing. Because whatever is happening internally, external people are not getting a glimpse of what is happening. They are only seeing your product, which are outside. But maybe there are a lot of internal tools and a lot of internal processes which you are not following, which needs to be shown to others that this is how we work. So creating a lot of blogs. Nowadays, social media is so active. Having a very good presence on LinkedIn or Twitter, which demonstrates the work which is done internally always, and encouraging your employees to also sort of follow and keep updating there, which are more digital means. And there are a few companies which I have seen what they do is they organize a lot of these product meetups, sessions where they have product mixers and all, where they invite other people to come to their office, talk to them. I remember MakeMyTrip used to do a lot of these. That we would, although MakeMyTrip was known for as a product company, but
Yeah.
still we used to invite a lot of other people and brainstorm. It allows both. It allows A to establish yourself, and B also potential candidates also you will find in those meetups, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you have a first-hand information about who are these people, and then you can then reach out to these people, or they can reach out to you, knowing that these are the good things which are happening. So yeah, it's a tough and long journey. I won't say it's an easy one. The best thing, of course, is that your product speaks for yourself, but that, of course, is a very long journey, right? If you
Yeah.
have a very good product, then of course people will know you as a product company. But there are a lot of other companies also who are good internally, but because maybe it's not a B2C company, or maybe the product is such which they sell to the clients in US. So there is no branding available in India. And there are a
Yeah.
lot of people, I know a lot of companies which are very good as a product organization. They work on world-class products. But in India, nobody knows because either they are not B2C, so they don't brand internally,
Yeah.
and it's a B2B product, so they sell to customers outside. So they
Yeah.
don't have any sort of visibility. What they can do is one of some of these things which I said, that have their presence online, and also maybe try and do some of these catch-ups, meetups. And these all can be low-cost items. None of these are very inexpensive items. But if you keep doing it like a quarterly or once in 6 months, it adds to build a credible brand.
No, that's interesting. So I think so two key takeaways for our participants here would be, one being, publish more blogs, be
Yeah,
active on social media on those areas, which also is, by the way, a very important aspect around the whole employer branding piece. Most of the companies are really investing into it. And
yeah,
second, conduct meetups, or, like earlier days, we used to conduct hackathons, or, the tech talk sort of an equivalent of the product side, do product mixers to attract certain budding product managers, or potential people who could be a part of your org. Which brings me to the next question. Given that now this shift is happening, from a trend perspective, are you seeing there are any specific trends or shifts in product management hiring landscape that companies should be aware about? With specifically ChatGPT coming into place, or AI coming into place. What are few of the things that you think are going to be important?
yeah. I think I'll touch upon a few points which I mentioned earlier also, that this hiring in product management is difficult, as we have said, that the funnel is really, really skewed. And my wife is an HR, and I was talking to her around other roles also, and she also agrees that the funnel drop in the product roles is typically the steepest, because you will have to talk to so many people and then reach to a few number, and then they will also drop out because these are very few. To get to the really good ones is a difficult task, and to retain those people is equally difficult because they will have multiple options. So, but the one thing which I mentioned in the first answer only, where I said that what we need to do is up our game ourselves, because in product, UX, and similar roles, product analytics, UX, or this domain I call as product only, but nuances are coming in each of these roles. And a lot of times what happens is the product, if there is a product there's a candidate, and the HR is talking to that individual, and if the HR is not able to make a good impact in terms of whether they understand this role or not. I remember in one organization, I just said yes to the further rounds because that HR person communicated that role so well to me. I was like, I have never seen an HR person talk about product so well. So, if you can talk about product so well, that means your clarity is so well that the organization must really be good in terms. So I think the change is largely that people are becoming people are becoming a little more, they are choosy, but there are now nuances appearing, as I was saying, right? Product is not just one big box now. There are different roles within product also which are coming up. Technical
Yeah.
product roles, category product roles, growth product managers, and so on. So uh, we need to assess which product manager are we hiring, and be very, very explicit about this. Up our game also as recruiters, that we have really good understanding of what it is done. For example, I actually sat with my hiring manager, the HR, and actually showed her these are the 5 kind of people I would want to hire, like on LinkedIn. This person, this person, this person. And these are the commonalities in all of this so that she really understands, okay, what are we looking for? Rather than just creating a JD and just floating it and saying that, let's see, let's monitor it like a regular funnel. Itne log aayenge, this typical thing which goes on. So
Same thing. Yeah.
you have to really solve it a little differently because the people are a little choosy, and I think the time is such. The product UX, I think there will come a time in maybe a few years when you will start having abundant supply of this. But for now, there is a tough challenge.
Yeah, yeah. Which I also, I mean, you touched upon a couple of interesting points, around UX. That's another role where a lot of the HR managers or specifically recruiters, hiring managers and both, the sourcing folks always get worried. How do I find out which is the right UX? So, do you want to, touch upon that particular point? So, how do I identify, the best UX person? What are some of the important traits about them?
Yeah, for UX, UI, I think more than the resume or their LinkedIn profile, their portfolio is something which is more important. So, instead of just looking, because I have had a lot of UX people who do not come from very good, renowned colleges. In product management, that can be a proxy. Like, for example, if somebody is from IIT or an IIM, you can assume, you can give some benefit of doubt that, this will have a certain IQ and a certain analytical skill. But in UX, UI, sometimes the colleges don't matter a lot. Like, not necessarily that they are people from NIFT or IITs who become the good UX and design people. And a lot of times we just reject some of those profiles by looking at the resume and say, no. And without actually asking for their portfolio, their Behance profile, their Dribble profiles, and see the kind of work which they have done. A lot of people who have not done a very good education, but they are they have worked so much and they understand this so much. So at least from a resume shortlisting perspective, looking at their portfolios becomes so important. And nowadays, even for product, a lot of people, especially the aspiring PMs who have not worked as a product manager, have now started to create their own portfolios. So that's the new trend where product managers themselves are creating their own portfolios where they're publishing case studies or product tear downs on different products so that a recruiter can look at it and understand what is his thinking level.
So. Yeah. That's I think so. That's going to be, portfolio is going to be a thing, for all product managers and UI UX folks going forward. Just one last question, which was around the whole hiring managers, recruiters. They spend too much amount of time when it comes to sourcing, screening, and eventually selecting a candidate. Often negotiations, everything happens, right? But there are a lot of last minute drop-offs, and from a stat perspective as well, it's been one of the areas, product and technology both combined being one of the highest areas where there are a lot of last minute drop-offs. Is there any way to manage the last minute dropout or backouts? I mean, it's a tough question, obviously, but what do you suggest?
Yeah, I wish if I had the answer, I'll be a millionaire today because a lot of companies pay me. Because we have also faced this problem, and honestly, especially when the COVID time was there, and a lot of options were also available, and it was also very difficult for people to hold on to guys, right? You're just talking to somebody. There is no physical connect with people, and so there is no loyalty built in initially. So they were just bouncing off from here and there. But a few things which I'm just only talking about people whom we had very little faith that we had very little belief that they will join, but they still joined. And I'll just tell you what are the things which we did, and I'm thinking that maybe those were the reasons why they sort of joined. One is that we invited them to the office, and we actually spent a lot of time not just interviewing, but also assimilating them in the groups. So, for example, this is a product discussion happening every Tuesday morning, and this guy is there. So we'll ask them to just sit in that conversation. and see how do we conduct our product reviews. This is the way we do. I'll ask them to just sit in one of the conversations which I'm having with my marketing head or with my salesperson, so that it is no longer only a name of the company and a position and a salary, but much more than that. He's become more involved in the kind of work which he or she is going to do. It might backfire also, because if he does not like it, then it is surely gone. But you have to be confident enough to know that you will be able to. If people see this, they are more likely to join you than not join you. And you may also think that that's probably a good attrition. If they look at you and they think they're not fit for this, or if they don't like you, then they better not join, because then rather than having him and in 6 months they are writing, it's better that they don't join at all. But if they look at this, their chances of moving to a different organization only because of a better package might decrease a little, because you have seen how things work. And what I do is, this person, I will start talking to this person on an individual basis, not as in from an organization. Like typically what happens is only the HR person is in touch, and the person who is the hiring manager, right? The person who she's or he is going to report to, he or she is not in touch. So what I do is make sure that I get the number. I, in a few days, talk to that individual or message that individual, send some of the updates about the organization. Suppose if when I was at Spinny and we were about to raise the next round, and that news was about to come, and we know that next date is going to come, I just sent him that article that, so he feels a little special, saying that, he's already one step in the organization. He's not privy to information which everybody else is going to see tomorrow or day after tomorrow. So, things like those, and start giving him some information which is not very confidential, but which starts making him feel that, he's a part of the overall team. And then it becomes difficult for him or her to, unless there is a very good package or option, which in any case people will leave. But it kind of decreases. You have done your best from your side to help in that sense.
Yeah. Plus, also it gives you an idea that chances you from an indication perspective, they're not really being responsive on
whether
phone
they're
call.
responding or not. Exactly.
Yeah. So I think so. That becomes a key point. I think so. Sometimes the hiring person has to take that, or the manager who they're going to work. I think so. It becomes a provocator for them as well to convert them to then just leaving it to the HR, because it becomes tough for the HR. So that that brings us towards the end of the questions that we had curated. But now we'll open it up to the audience. If there are any other questions from the attendees, we would happy to answer. So audience, you could post your questions on the Q&A box, and we'll pick them one by one.
There are a few questions already.
One of the questions, from a participant is, how do we take the org, which has been a typical product org, to an AI-driven product org? What are certain things that we should look at?
To an AI-driven product org. See, we've been talking about AI a lot these days, and it's a fact that AI is going to change things in a lot of cases. But it is not necessary that the entire organization is going to become AI driven, right? Unless the premise of that organization is AI. So a company like, say, Zomato, which is primarily into delivering food, right? So that business model will not change to AI. Like, of course, the app might change a little. The recommendations which are coming might change a little, and so on. Their internal processes might change a little, but it is not a given that every organization has to sort of start moving towards an AI-led organization. It also depends on the use cases and the kind of organization which it is, whether they want to become AI-led, it will definitely be that the technology side and the product side you will start having a lot of AI folks, and especially in product, because they can think of use cases where AI can be used. Because if you ask engineers and developers, they will start using AI in every other place. But so far, AI is, as a technology has emerged. Nobody is denying that. Similarly, like when mobile phones started coming in with internet, that technology was there, but it needed a lot of organizations to match that use case. So phone was there, GPS was there, but it needed an Uber to match this use case that you can click and order a taxi which will come, and you can. So just technology is not going to change anything. You need people, you need, especially product side, you need those people who will match the use cases with technology. So hence, I don't think it's a requirement to just rehaul the organization to an AI-driven organization. But yeah, hire the right kind of people, especially at the strategy level, especially at the product and maybe head of engineering kind of level, to have these right kind of people who are thinking about how AI can change and disrupt things. And after that, it will start flowing. So for now, just focus on these key roles to get in. There's no point hiring a data sciences engineer or developer, because he doesn't know what to do with AI, right? You have to first figure out what is the thing that you want to do with AI.
Got it. Next question, which is an anonymous question. In your opinion, is it a downgrade if product managers move to product owner role?
See, definitely from a scope perspective, product manager is a higher level role compared to a product owner role, because product owner is restricted by its definition to the Scrum team, where he has to manage, he has to write user stories, do user acceptance testing, figure out the roadmap and so on. Whereas other things like marketing, operation, go-to-market, and a lot of other things are managed by the product managers. However, there are organizations which have, like Booking.com, I know for a fact, have a lot of product owners, and they sort of give. So it depends upon, if you have a very technical orientation and you want to be involved there, you might be better off being a product owner, because you necessarily don't have a very inside out perspective that you want to know about what is happening outside from a customer, from a competition point of view. Then you might not even like a product manager role. But by definition, it is correct that a product manager would have a higher influence over products than a product owner.
Got it. Yeah, Stephanie has a question. With the changing tech world, what tech should a product owner be aware of in today's market?
Yeah. See, and I said, knowledge of technology is also dependent on the kind of role and the organization you want. For example, Google makes it mandatory to have a computer science graduation degree if they have to hire you as a product manager. I think now they have relaxed it to a few other functions, but they don't go beyond engineers. So you have to have an engineer, and for the longest time, it had to be in computer science, information systems engineering. So they require technology to that degree. However, you cannot say the same for a company like, say, Paytm or Zomato, who might involve more of people who understand business or operations or design, especially for Zomato, right? So and hence the organizations will also, it will depend upon from organization to organization. For example, if you're wanting to work for Adobe, then your technology level, or Microsoft, you need to have a certain level of technology, because the whole DNA of that organization is tech. But if the DNA of the organization is sales, then you can still be not from a pure technology background and be a good product manager. However, having said that, that doesn't mean you can work with zero tech skills. You need to have a basic minimum threshold of technology skills. And by that, I mean that you should be able to translate your requirements in a language which is understood by the technology, and have the vocabulary, understand what the tech team is saying. You cannot be saying, what are you talking about? I don't understand this. Of course, you're not supposed to code this. But if they tell you that, these are the two technology related choices which I have, help me to take one, pick one. You should be competent enough to indulge in a conversation and help them to choose one, and so on.
That's a good answer. Another question from Sarah is, working as an online recruiter for an international company, how can I stay connected with my co-workers and managers and be on top of the information regarding positions, requirements, and criteria?
That's a difficult one for me. I've actually never worked with recruiters like on international, like somebody who is not in the same city or outside the country. So yeah, I don't think I will be able to give a good answer to this question.
Yeah, no worries. So Sarah, I think so, there are ways, where once you have a position requirement, criteria, like I think so one of the points that you also mentioned, Shailendra, during the interviews, which I typically use is that, ask for some ideal profiles. Saying, what is my ideal profile looking like, once your requirements are not clear or the requirements are pretty generic or the criteria is pretty wide open. Sometimes people would just, and recruiters face this a big problem saying, I want to hire a product manager between 3 to 5 years of experience, computer science background in a tech company. Now it really opens the big box of product managers, which are either B2B, B2C product managers. So, start, Sarah, and I'm assuming, Sarah, you're asking from a product management perspective, because that's where we would be able to help you out. But, in that particular area, ask those questions around, is it going to be B2C, B2B, things like, is it going to be a platform role? App is important, app is not important, so that you get an idea. And ask for certain reference profiles, either within the org as well, saying, who are your top performing product managers. So you could, while you're doing the search, you could replicate them. That's a trick that generally, works well. But yeah, that could be one thing.
Yeah. I think one thing which I can add is that this is how I differentiate a good recruiter versus a great recruiter. And I'm not talking only in sense of somebody who is working remotely and does not have the access, but generally that the recruiters, as a recruiter, as a HR person, how interested are you to understanding what is the business all about, right? Or are you only focusing on just give me the JD, tell me the demographic, let me the details, and I'll get going. Really good recruiters I've seen actually try to understand the business, the product, how do you do, what do you do, and have a basic sense of, and that is where they start communicating to the candidates. They sound more intelligent. They were able to do a good job in also figuring out and helping the recruiter that, I spoke and I asked these questions, and I don't think this person is the right fit because, he does not meet these candidates. You should also be able to add value. But you will be able to add value only when you understand the process very, very well.
Yeah. Then Kuhu has a question. Kuhu Sharma has a question saying, hello, really very nice session. Just want to ask one of your points that last minute drop-offs can be managed by inviting them to premises and showing them the culture. Is there any way to do same in work from home scenario?
Work from home scenario, when COVID was there, we were doing a lot of these things. I don't know how much did it work. For example, we used to send them the welcome kit and so on to their homes without them joining, like before them joining. So it's almost like an investment which you are doing and not knowing whether they're going to join or not. But it kind of binds them in a way that, if you're receiving a bouquet with certain things, certain goodies, and they feel good because, you're sending them. Most of the people that time were staying with their families. So, their parents are seeing, their other relatives are seeing. So it kind of puts a positive pressure on the candidate to also join.
Yeah. I think so. There's a story about Kunal Shah also. He used to before people used to, there was a big drop off that's happening. Used to send their laptops before ahead in the time. So, then the companies, then the candidates used to be pressurized saying, now I've received my laptop. How do I go back and return it and say I'm not joining? And I can't really take away and abscond as well.
Yeah.
So those could be some interesting tactics to use. Then Rahul Sanghi has a question saying, what would you say to an ex-entrepreneur wanting to move to product management?
I would say that's a good idea for ex-entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs are mostly, as we say, right? There's a reason why product managers are called, mini CEOs, because as product managers, you're supposed to be knowing you are the owner, and ownership. You take the ownership of the entire product. So if you have done your business yourself, you have scaled this, or at least done something on your own product. I think it will be easier for you to do this, to get into product management, unless your product was very, very like on manufacturing or something which was very niche. If it was on the digital products or anything where you have scaled things, I think it will be easier for you. I would always look for an entrepreneur when I'm hiring a product manager. And if somebody say that, he started with a company or an organization, even if it failed, but I will definitely value that much higher than even an MBA degree, to be honest, because there is nothing called as a failed entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs are always successful. Whether the products fail, that's a different thing. But entrepreneurs always come out winners in that journey.
I agree. I've seen a lot of product. I mean, in fact, that's another hiring tactic that I use. I try to figure out if they are ex-entrepreneurs, because they would hustle their ways through getting things delivered. And that's one of the key things. Empathy is there because they understand the value of not delivering or delivering as well, right? And then the other part is they have their way to hustle around. Figure out they're very resourceful,
because they know that they can't look up. There is nobody. Whatever they have to do themselves. Like for other employees, they're like, I pass this to my boss and they will take care. Like, but as the CEO, as the entrepreneur, you're like, either I will do it or it will not get done. So that's true for product managers also.
Sure. So that brings us to the end of the webinar. I think so, Shailendra, this was a very insightful one. I think so. One of the very unique ones that we've done, going deep into a topic around, product management. I think so. The other ones have been, talking about various ways of recruiting or, other challenges that people face. But I think so from a vertical perspective, this is an important vertical. So thanks for all the attendees, for, patiently listening to us, and, there will be a feedback that will be sent to you. Please, give us your feedback. And any other requests, so that in the future we would get you those webinars. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed it thoroughly. Thank you.